Hello and welcome. Today I want to show you the tangle Fife, and that's by Zentangle headquarters. Okay, so I'm not going to, yes I am going to do a dots and a border. I always say this, you get me as you get me. So I've done a little dot and now I'm going to draw a border. You can see I've come in a fair way. I'm not worried about the lines being exactly straight. Just a light border. Okay, I'm going to pop my pencil to the side and I am going to be using my Lumos Duo pen, and what I'm going to do is I unscrew this end, and this is my 05 nib on this end here, and I'm going to create some dots that are sort of a dot grid. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to do them about that distance apart, and I want to make them sort of a square sort of apart, so I'll do one here. So you stagger your dots, and now I'll come down here. It doesn't matter if they're not exact. Down there, just a little dot. You can see mine are a little bit wonky. It doesn't matter. Okay, so you want to have sort of an equal distance along the bottom here, and I can just about put one in here. Okay, and it looks like one of these will go right on the bottom here. That's okay, it's rather handy. And your border is only there as a guidance. Okay, so I'm going to go up to these up here, and I'm going to join this one with a seed shape. Okay, and I'm going to do another seed shape here. I'm going to imagine that it goes off the page. So there's a seed shape there, and there's a seed shape there. Okay, I'm going to turn this sideways. From here, I'm going to do a seed shape. And a seed shape. And a seed shape. Okay, here I can go seed shape. You're going to join these dots. As you can see, you've got, if they were slightly squarer, you'd have this in a round. It really doesn't matter that they're not. So you start seeing you can either draw them all in a long line, or you can do them as individuals. I'm going to draw these in a line. Because you get a bit of a flow with the pen line. Come back up here. Okay, I'm going to do these ones. And again. So joining those dots with a seed shape. Taking your time. If you use a finer nib, you can make these closer together. But I would say if you're new to it, I would take your time and get to know the tangle first of all. This one, I'm going to pretend there's somewhere for them to go. Okay, now I can turn this way, and these will join this way now. Oops, it's not quite a seed shape, it's a wonky one. You're doing something like this, just breathe and relax. Okay. Taking your time, concentrating on holding your pen, being aware of the ink coming out of the pen. It's soaking into the paper, creating each line individually. Okay, to make this easier for myself now, and I'd always encourage you to do this, is turn your tile so that you're not reaching across your tile. I'm going to do these this way now. I'm aware as I'm doing this of the feedback from the paper. I can feel the nib on the paper. I can actually hear it as well. These Lumos pens with the fine liners in. The fine liners are quite firm, it's nice. You feel it's a safe nib to use. Okay, so you can see you've got like a network that starts appearing. So I've purposely turned my tile this way. I'm now going to do a seed shape, and I'm going to do it, if you imagine this is the roundish shape, I'm going to do a seed shape that comes into the middle. So you're now going to join the middles. This will be a half one. And so you're coming down the middles of those four-sided roundish shapes. You can play with this, you can play with how close you have those original dots. That will make a difference to the size of these spaces and how round your final sort of shapes or your first shapes are when you do it. So by adding one line at a time in a nice steady repetitive line, repetitive pen stroke, you can, by doing this, sort of get into the zone. Your hand, your muscles, your brain gets into a flow of this action, and that's calming and restful. Okay, I'm going to turn this way just so I can do these ones. And once I've done these, we've got one more set of lines to add. It can look quite busy, but it's so clever that it sort of becomes interwoven. Okay, so we've now got all of those, and we've got sort of a texture, haven't we? I'm going to turn my tile this way. Now you've still got this original roundish shape, and I'm going to join this point to this point, but I'm going to hollyball that seed shape, so it's going to go underneath. Okay, so it goes underneath the seed shape that you've just drawn. You might have to focus a little bit more. Just bringing this nice and steadily, so stop your pen when it gets to that upper seed shape. Hollyball, and that means drawing underneath. By doing this, you get this really intricate looking woven image, and all you're drawing are seed shapes. Okay, and that I think is amazing. By drawing one shape, and the only lines you're doing are C curves. There's one, and there's a reverse one, C curve. So you haven't got to learn lots of different pen strokes. You're literally using that same pen action repetitively and creating a patterned image from these structured patterns, or a textured image from a structured pattern. Structured patterns mean they have what we've got here, carefully put together, gradually building it rather than sort of randomly. And there's a joy of doing this and seeing something appear. Okay. So here we've got I've got parts of, so I'm going to have a bit of a curve. So I'm going to do that there. That one comes to there. So work with what you've got as to where you need your lines. I've got one more just to go in there. I think that's all of them. Okay, and you've now got that lovely interwoven. What I'm going to do to give it some boldness is to add some ink, and I'm going to ink in some of these little spaces in between. So taking my time, I'm going to ink in these little triangles, or curved three-sided triangles. Oh, triangles do have three sides, Joanna. You all know what I'm talking about. And when you're doing this again, inking in is something so enjoyable. Just taking your time to allow the ink to fill completely the little section that you're working on. Okay, so you might want to use, as I said, a finer nib. I've used the 5 because it gives a nice bold line for you to see, but it's quite versatile with 5, to be honest. You can draw quite fine lines, as well as the being able to fill in. You can be quite bold with it. You can have a lighter touch. Filling it in with ink gives this some real dimension, doesn't it? And it will look quite different. I'll complete one side and then I'll hold it back so that you can actually see the difference between the inked inside and the incomplete section. And I'll do this real time because I think it's important to understand the time that things take, and there shouldn't be a rush. It's just the joy of putting it together. I have to remember I'm doing this to talk to you. I can get very into the moment, and then that means that I can forget to speak. It happens in classes sometimes if I'm really involved in, well, I'm always involved in what I'm doing, but sometimes you can enter that Zentangle zone, and it's to do with the repetitiveness. Your brain sort of softly becomes calm, and you can just spend your time focusing on this pen action that you're doing right now without any thought of what comes next. So just take your time with this, filling each section. If you've got a finer pen, really work at just filling in all those little white spaces that you might leave behind so that you get a nice, dense, inky background. And really enjoy the flow of the ink from this pen. It's very forgiving. It's quite surprising how smooth it is. Do here. Okay, and you will be able to see now what a difference it makes by adding in this ink. You don't have to do it when you do Fife. You don't have to ink in behind. This is just this version that I'm doing. I'm just going back and inking some of those spaces. Now you can start seeing the difference between the two sides, and it's very lovely. So I'm going to carry on inking here, and you take your time, and I'll come back to you when we've finished. So here we are, just finishing these final little sections. I've enjoyed doing these. And we have this lovely patterned, textured image. Just go back, have a little look for any little white spaces that you might have. Pop my lid on my pen, which is very nice. Get my pencil, and we're going to do a little bit of shading. So the places where I want to add shade, where all these meet, this is like the center point to me, it looks like. So I'm just going to add a little bit of graphite on that one. And just tease that out lightly and do it here. Not a huge amount. Okay. Blowing little bits of paper fibre away that I'm lifting as I'm using the Tortillon. With these, I'm doing them individually rather than putting lots of graphite down. And it will start, I'll pop it 2 bits there, having said that. Working nice and steadily. Just on those points as well. You don't want to make all the little seed shapes grey with the graphite, because otherwise they will just be flat grey. So you always need to keep some white section available or visible, so like middle here. I've got a little bit of graphite on the end of my Tortillon, and I'm just using that to add into other little sections just to tidy it. You don't always need to pop down more graphite. You might have enough on the end of your Tortillon. Like here. You can start seeing it coming to life. And pop it here. On the centres where all these little stars are really. Oops, missed two here, look. It's so easy to do when you're involved in just moving along and adding your graphite. In fact, I realised I'd stopped talking then because I was just enjoying adding the graphite, and my brain was having a little wander, as it does. I'm sure many of you have realised that as you're tangling. Your brain has a little soft wander into little thoughts, and that's fine. It's rather nice to do. Tangling has been shown to sort of help you work through any problems. Your brain is at rest and you can think things through. We all have things that we need to think through quietly. And almost got to the ends of here. I may well just add a little bit more graphite in another place, which I'll show you once I've done this. So if you've added it in sort of a circle, don't just leave it so it's like that, where it's quite obvious. You need to then really lift the tortillon and just tickle it so that you lose that harsh outer line of grey to white. It's just becoming familiar. Okay, so what I'm going to do, there's a lot of graphite there already, but I'm going to add where this little seed shape goes underneath, here and here, here. That did quite a dark line. And you have to be really careful now because you don't want to spread it out too much. Because you just want it to look a little bit darker so it goes underneath. As I said just now, you don't want to spread too far because then your sections become completely grey. So having a nice pointy pencil, a nice sharp pencil, small-ended tortillon so that it's not a stubby thing, so you've got that accuracy. And I'm just going to work down here. Yeah, if you've got one of those blunt old tortillons, they're useless. Don't carry on persevering. Just get rid of it and get out a new one, and you'll go, why didn't I pick out this new one beforehand? It's so much nicer. And okay, I'm just doing that little bit just there, keeping the seed shape above white pretty much. I'm just tidying that graphite as I go along. And that is Fife. And I'm going to put my chop down the bottom here, the Zenjo, and I'll sign and date the back. And that is Fife by Zentangle Headquarters. Thank you.